All right, let's add a little bit more to our new Vue instance here. We're just going to start with adding a little bit more data here to our data object up here. So just do a comma to separate them again, and we're just going to type in skills like this in the multiple, or the plural I think it's called in English. And we're just going to eat his skills is donut eating, right? That's what Homer wants to do. Homer hungry. So back to our HTML after we made sure this is in our app here and there's no errors. And for this to print out, what do you think we need to do? We just need to print out the skills, so that should show. And let's just do this with a double curly brackets and type in skills like this, and let's do a refresh over here. And now it's Homer donut eating. Now the good thing about, or the cool thing about you using things like Vue is that instead of, for example, in JavaScript we would have to do concat to between, and so write strings for like Homer likes and then plus and then print out the variables and so on and so on. But when we're using Vue, we can just do this. Because we're using this interpolation, or they are using this, we can just write HTML in front of this. So for example, name equals colon this, and I kind of just want to wrap this in a, for example, p tag, so it's not bad code writing. So I'm just going to do the same with this down here. So tag like this, save. And I'm going to do the same down here with skills. So we have skills colon and then printing out the skills. So let's try and see what this does. So now we suddenly have Homer skills, well, I name Homer, and skills eating, and I just, oh, there we go. For some reason it doesn't print out the skills. That is, there we go. It didn't refresh correctly apparently. And now we have this, and we can just add all the HTML that we want here, all the plain text if you want, to make sure everything fits. We can put in images around it, or whatever really. We're just using the interpolation here to grab the data that's being stored over here and put it in here. And we can put it in as many times as we want really. So if we want to copy this, or we want to use the same information more than one place, we just do it like this. So just put in the interpolation of whatever data object you want to print out as many times as you want. Cool, right? So that's just one thing we can do. The next thing I just want to show you is methods. So basically a method is just like a function in JavaScript. And what we're going to do real fast is just we're going to create a simple version of this. Now Vue does this in their way, and as we have up here, we have our EL, our element, where we want to print out all our data or our Vue application, and then we separate with the comma sign here, and the same, then we have our data object here. For creating our method, we would just do the same. So after our data object is closed, so here, do comma, enter, and then we're going to type method with an S. And we're going to create, it's going to be created in an object as well like this. So in here, we can now create a function. And let's call it a greet function. That's so popular and everyone uses it, so we're going to use it as well. So we're going to create a greet function. And we're going to call it greet, not greet, with the T. And it's a function, right? So do this and create our function. And for starters, we're just going to do this and have it as simple as possible. So function, no parameters in here. And then our curly brackets for our function. And in here, we're just going to return something. So let's just return good. What is it now? The time is 10:06, so that's good morning for us. Kinda, I don't know if there's an English word for formidable. Danish, there you go. But this is what we're going to print out for now. So let's save this and let's see how we can use this in our index, right? So we have a method now, we have the function's name and whatever the function's doing, so it's returning whenever the function is being run, it's just returning this string called good morning. Cool. Let's go back to our HTML here, and I'm just gonna, before everything happens, I'm just gonna print out an H3. Cool, H3. Do our double curly brackets. That's one too many. I just blew it. There we go. And in here, I'm just gonna, kind of like I did with the data, I'm just gonna make sure it knows where to go. So I already have a name assigned for this method here. It's called greet. So I'm just gonna copy this and I'm pasting this in. And in JavaScript, whenever we call a function, we need these two as well. So make sure you have the name and the parentheses here. So this is how it's going to work going out. Let's try and see if this works. So it should say good morning, because now it's grabbing the method called greet and it's printing out the string called good morning. Cool, right? But can we add to this? Can we do a little bit more? Can we do it like with JavaScript, where we maybe pass some data through this here so it actually interacts with our method over here? Yes, we can, and we're going to try that. So instead of good morning, it might change to noon, midday, evening, night, and so on, right? So we're going to pass in some information here between the normal, not curly bracket, parentheses, and have them work together with our method here, and then print out with the interpolation the correct time of day. So first of all, we're just gonna, let's just keep most of this for now, but inside our function here, we are going to pass in something, and I'm gonna call this time of day. And I'm using camel casing to write this, so small t for starters, camel casing for new words, right? So capital O, capital here, and that's what we're gonna do. And in this down here, we can now, kind of like what I mentioned interpolation could do by itself, but we're going to concat everything here. So we have good morning, and the morning part is where we want our function to print out if it's morning or if it's noon or whatever, right? So we're going to have a plus, so we're going to concat this, and we're going to take the time of day. That's what it's going to print out, so good afternoon, good morning, good whatever. And that's what we're going to start out with for now. So we need into our greet here to pass in our day, time of day, right? So let's just start, not morning, let's do evening, even though it's not evening. So let's try and see if this says good evening over here. So now instead of good morning, it says good evening. So we are through our method here. We're passing in this string here, this text string, evening, and then it's sending this to our method down here where it's becoming time of day. This could be called whatever you want. Just will goo if you want it to be called. If you wanted to call it goo, then we call it goo. And it's just the name of whatever we're passing in, right? Goo, it doesn't make sense, so we're going to return it to time of day. So that's how we would do this. And we can also actually add names, skills down here, but we're going to be looking at into the next video on how we can actually pass or grab information from up here and pass it to these one down here and have everything printed out. Cool, see you in the next video.